Morning and welcome to Haventree Parent Podcast, where we get a chance to talk about something that's important to us and to you before our kids wake up.
Today we're going to be talking about whether or not you should fight or disagree in front of your kids.
Finally, this is the topic I wanted to talk about. So growing up, obviously, I think I said in the last podcast that we never heard our parents fighting growing up, or at least I did not. And my parents thought that was, good for them to not argue in front of us, kind of thing. And Katie grew up differently, where
We definitely knew, like when our parents had disagreement about something, we knew. It wasn't I don't know. Like, I guess I feel like as you and I have talked about it, it was very different, our experiences. And so it was kind of an interesting, like, dynamic for us early on. I'll let you talk more about what you were going to, about your family or your experiences and how that shaped your perspective, though.
I gotcha. I can't say. That's a big question.
How much do I want to say if my mom is watching?
Don't like arguing. I don't know. I don't see. I guess I never experienced like watching arguments that weren't like on TV or whatever you would call it. So like it was just like you saw people fighting on screen, but like that you didn't see fighting in your home or whatever. And so that was, I guess, the best way I can say, like, that would some of my experience growing up as far as like understanding how to argue a point. It was all TV arguments where it was very one-sided or, narrative directive for the storyline or whatever reason. And you could usually side with the character of like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with that character in the movie. When it's your parents fighting, I can't say I ever saw them fight. So it wasn't like I would side with mom or dad type of thing.
Right.
So it wasn't like I saw an example from that perspective as far as like, I don't know, outside the story, like this story involves me too. But I don't know. So, does that make sense? I mean, I sort of feel like that's a weird way to go about.
Yeah, but I think that it made you very like conflict averse.
Oh yes, definitely. So yeah, no, I definitely didn't like conflict as far as like my own personal encounters with other people. Like as soon as there was conflict, it was either walk away and forget that person,
right,
or
fight to the death. Like there was no sort of
really grudgy with that person. So.
Yeah, like, and it's very interesting. In our last podcast, we talked about how we're very opposite. And so it was definitely, once we got married, kind of an interesting dynamic where anytime we disagreed about something, Josh felt like it was a fight, like Josh, when we first got married, Josh really had no, sort of framework even for like healthy discussions. Like if we had a discussion about something because we had a differing opinion, his like go-to response was like, well, I don't want to fight about it. And it was like, we're not fighting, like to me growing up, fighting was like yelling, fighting was like arguing aggressively, and for Josh, when I would say like, hey, why don't we like talk about this before we go out and do this thing? Because I feel like, we have different ideas or opinions. Josh would be like, well, I don't want to fight about it. And it was like, I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't trying to start a fight. Like I wasn't looking to fight. I just wanted to talk about it,
right. And I'm like, oh man, this is it. This is Super Saiyan mode. Here we go. Let's charge up.
Everything, like even little things.
Yeah.
Like everything. It was like, it felt like a big fight.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, was what your parents intended for you to like see of that. Mm-hmm. I also think part of it is probably just your personality, that you don't like conflict at all. You want everybody to get along and agree all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of it is, the example you saw from your parents, and part of it is your personality. But it definitely is something that we kind of had to work through early on in our marriage of like, I'm not starting a fight. I, just want to talk about why you thought this was the best idea. Like, help me understand your perspective, help me, see your side. Because I agree, but I don't know how you got to that conclusion, help me, to be on the same page as you. I don't, and we do fight, now we do disagree, but it did take a lot of time for us to have conversations, where we disagreed, but that didn't mean we were fighting, we disagreed, but it was for a good reason, and we both had good reasons, and that was okay, and even now, like probably as we continue to talk about this topic of disagreements in couples, you will hear Josh use the word fight, and still, sort of that instinctive response to me is like, fighting is yelling at each other. Fighting is like angry about your perspective versus my perspective. Like fighting, to me has a very different connotation, whereas to Josh, like fighting is anytime we converse about something that, we have two different ideas about, which to me is like, honestly, every day we have two different opinions because we're two different people, right? That doesn't mean we fight every day. That means we talk through things every day. And so, so you will probably still like hear and pick up on that in the way that Josh talks about things. Because it is something that, just the way that you think about it's very different. And it's funny now, like we can laugh about it now, but there was a long time where I was so frustrated. Like I'm not trying to start a fight. Like, I just want to talk to you.
Every choice I make, it's always a disagreement. No, I'm just kidding.
And like I said, we've gotten a lot better. Like, we've been married for 10 years. I mean, we dated for like 2-3 years before that. 2 years.
2 years at least.
So like we've kind of gotten to a place. I still tease him from time to time about being conflict averse. Because there are still times where like he'll say, well, I don't want to fight about it. I'm like, neither do I. I just want to talk to you. And so it is, something that we still laugh about, but it did make sort of our starting out difficult. And so because of that, we think that it is important to have some of those kinds of conversations in front of your kids. Now, I do not think that it's appropriate to yell at your spouse ever, but especially in front of your kids. I think if you are feeling heated about something, which inevitably happens, there are times that we feel heated with one another. That's a conversation that needs to happen behind closed doors, after bedtime, apart from kids. I don't think that having heated discussions in front of kids is appropriate.
Right. It's more like you were saying, the more like debate between two decisions type of stuff. That's the easier conversations to at least, I don't know, they can be around and you can sort of talk gingerly around it and still like get to a deciding point on compromise, because it's however you want to.
It's teaching your kids problem solving skills. Like it's teaching your kids problem solving skills to hear their parents say like, well, why did you make this choice? Why did you, what was your thought process here? Or, I hear what you're saying, but I really think this, Yeah.
And it's funny because even I know like there's been times where we like sat at the kitchen table or sat like at the bar and the kids are running and getting water or getting a snack or whatever they're grabbing, and I know like I'm like in my mind I'm thinking of like what I'm trying to say and like argue well for myself and the decision that we're trying to talk about and like be, I don't know, mindful of like the kid being in the room type of thing and how that our appearance of discussion looks to them. I don't know. That's just my brain.
I do think
I very internalized the current moment, and I'm like, okay, how does this discussion look to them right now as we're talking about
whatever it is,
why I didn't make vegetables for dinner as well, or whatever.
It's such an easy thing to point to.
It is an easy one right now. So yeah, there's only been like times where like we'll argue about whatever. Like, yeah, I know that there's been times when
Or, like,
we're in the car to go to the zoo or something.
Yeah,
and
getting ready to go is a point of contention. Usually, it's like often we're late because
every Sunday morning is that a fight for everybody.
Yeah,
So,
so like we'll be talking about like, what were you doing? Like, why, if you need to spend 30 minutes on the toilet in the
Why were
morning,
we
you need
taking-
to get up earlier.
why were you
Like,
taking the garbages out when we needed to be getting in the car? I'm like,
Right,
the garbage
like-
was full, and also you take it out. So.
right, so I mean, those things happen. And so it is, in some ways, it's a good, as you kind of said, like it's a good check and balance
Yeah.
to have those discussions in front of your kids too, because I think it sort of forces you to have a fair conversation and not be disrespectful and not speak down to your spouse, because little ears are watching or listening,
Yeah,
and there are certainly times too where like I know if I'm starting to get angry instead of just being annoyed or like confused. Like if we have a conversation and I'm annoyed or confused, that's fine. If we have a conversation and I'm really starting to get angry and there are kids around, like it sort of is time to say like, you know what, I think we need to, talk about this later, because and that sort of is like the way that I say, like, I'm not in control of my emotions anymore. And so I need to take a break and we need to come back to this conversation in a little bit, and we both are pretty good about sort of respecting that. Like if one of us says like, we need to come back to this. Typically we both are pretty good about saying like, fine. It's not always nice, but
Let's pause now. We'll
Right.
come back to it later. Yeah. Okay. Eventually, in the middle of that discussion or argument or whatever
Conversation.
the fight that it is, the struggle that we face here. There will be, inevitably some child will, get hurt or injured or need
Right,
something, and that will
right.
pull us out of that, like, let's debate
Discussion,
this,
yeah.
your mind versus my mind, and let's get to a compromise. And we'll be, all right, fine. Like, you do that, I'll go do this kid thing and
Right.
handle whatever situation.
and
So
we'll come back to it later. Yeah.
it definitely, there is interruptions and, continue pauses or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I do think, not only is having safe, healthy discussions about like difference in opinion or decision making, because really I would say like you, in our conversations in the past, like you've kind of made comments that like you didn't even really see a lot of like shared decision making with your parents, and I suspect strongly that probably part of that is just you being a boy and not just paying attention to that kind of, that sort of interaction.
Right.
Because I'm sure that your parents like made decisions when you guys were around, but your perspective was sort of that like,
No, my memories are just the events and
like
things that we did.
dad said we're going to do this and so we did this, mom said we're going to do this and so we did this. There
Yeah.
was never any sort of like, you never got to see like how your parents like arrived at a decision even, whereas like we sort of make even that sort of thing a family event. Like, let's talk about what do we want to do today? Let's vote on what vegetable we're going to have for dinner tonight. Like let's, and not to stir up a fight. I don't, we have enough fights without any antagonizing or stirring up. Right. Like, but let's make this decision in front of them so they can see how to make a decision in a healthy way.
Right. And I'll say maybe, there was those moments and I just only remember the event that was chosen and not necessarily, I know that there was the biggest fights growing up, and this is probably the biggest one between me and my sisters growing up. We would always go to the library and get like stacks of videotapes or whatever for watching shows for the weekend or whatever like that. So we'd always have the fight of like who got to watch their movie first, because now that we've each picked 10, so now we have 30 movies to choose from, and they want to watch 17 times in a row. So which one are we gonna pick first? And like mom created an idea where like she'll hold them behind her back and like we'd pick the one, and it was like, I don't know, I remember those like discussions. That was where I learned argument. Like we all had to wait for the option to be chosen by mom. So
but even that's not
otherwise-
really like making a fair decision or
Yeah.
the best. Like, you have already watched this 3 times. It's time to watch a different
Land
one.
Before
Or,
Time
like,
was basically on nonstop repeat at my house growing up.
we
so.
only watch the movie 1 time a day, or like even in that, it wasn't necessarily like you were seeing like like good guidelines of like, this is thinking through this problem and how to consider other people's opinion or feelings and your own, it was like left to chance or whatever, which is, there are things like that where I'm like, flip a coin. I don't care, right.
And that's where my mom was at. She was like, and it's one of these three. So
right.
Yeah,
but
you will watch them all eventually.
If that's the biggest thing you fought about and that's the example
I
that
mean,
you
I'm sure
remember,
there was more fights, but
like because of that, because of Josh's gaps in memory or whatever the case may be, because like I said, I don't think that his parents never made decisions in front of him. I think that that's just part of like him being a not observant boy growing up.
Hey,
being an
ESTP,
being
all
an
about the next
adventurer
adventure.
in the moment,
Yeah.
So I think that that's part of part of where that perspective comes from.
Right.
But because of that, we think it's really important to teach our kids good problem solving skills, teach our kids good conflict resolution skills,
Right.
teach our kids good ways to listen to the other person and also share our opinion,
And I will say that even now, when they're fighting with each other and trying to like talk about, a plan for their, whatever their day is or their show that they're trying to watch or movie they want to pick or toy they want to fight over. I think not stepping in and resolving that for them has been something that we try to do. Like we try to say, okay, talk about your plan. Like you say, I'll take this for 5 minutes and then you can have it for 5 minutes or, give them guiding tips as like a moderator type of person and not just like a stonewalling parent.
Yeah.
That
Like
says,
walking in and saying no more or whatever.
This is going to be my resolution as mom or dad. Like, and giving them the opportunity to like, talk to each other about how they want to resolve.
Yeah. There's lots of like, Josiah, you tell me what happened. Adri, you don't get to interrupt yet. Okay, Adri, you tell me what happened.
Right.
And of course, there's always like, well, she did this first. And there's always, and it's like, well, but wait, you had your turn to talk. Like, let this one talk. Or there are times where I'll make like them come up separately, and I'll say like, what happened? Adri smacked me. Okay, well, what happened before that? Oh, well, I got a stick and I said I was going to hit her. Okay.
Okay, danger. Let's not do that. So,
so sort of that, like, yes, I get that you're upset with what happened right this second, but like what happened before that? Or like how do you think that, like, I don't want to play with Kenzie anymore because she keeps whining. Well, what is she whining about? Well, she wants to play with my favorite Barbie. Well, which Barbie is she playing with? The one that doesn't have any legs? Okay, we have 40 Barbies, and you said Kenzie can only play with the one with no legs. Would you like to play with the Barbie with no legs? Okay.
Yeah.
But I got all of them for my birthday when I was 2. Okay, but you'll have 2 hands. So there's still 38 Barbies.
Katie's basically giving you the play-by-play for how she helps her kids deal with their toy situation.
Right. So these things happen.
Yeah.
Right. And and so we resolve these things by trying to think through them, but we also
we want them to make the decision as to like what they're going to do. I mean, there is times where it's like, nope, I'm stepping in and this will be the end of whatever's going on. But
there have been times where I'm like, I'm taking all the Barbies and putting them in a box and you don't get them for a week because I'm tired of fighting about Barbies.
Yeah.
Like those things do happen in our house too. Let's be realistic.
Right.
But, learning opportunities to resolve conflicts, seeing times where we can have a discussion in front of them. And I say discussion, Josh might still say fight. But if it's, just a difference of opinions, and it's something that we can disagree safely, as in without yelling, without getting angry, and with a resolution, I think those are conversations that you absolutely should have around your kids. I think that it's healthy for them to see that example. And we, quite frankly, kind of look for, like, this conversation we could have downstairs, this is a conversation we could have in the car. So, we very much value being able to have those conversations, disagreements, whatever.
I guess again, it's like one of those things where it's like, what are their memories going to be of all of this anyway? And, and it's like, Is it how? What are they going to remember more? Us arguing or themselves arguing with each other over their
Oh
toys
yeah,
and their
I'm
stuff?
sure that they. Well, I mean, you know, in the last podcast you mentioned asking Adri, like,
Yeah.
what do you do? You know, we fight, and Adri's response like, oh, food, like,
Right.
you know,
Has she
like,
remembered anything else? Has she witnessed any of it, or just like it's just I don't know, internalized for her own argument abilities? So
Yeah.
how well this all play out for them? I don't know. 20-year study, I guess. I'll come back to it. So.
I had another thought and I totally lost it. It, yeah, I don't know. I think, I don't know. I totally lost it. I'm sure it'll come to me like as soon as we're done, but
No, it's fine. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was there a thought of some advice and tips? I think there's been several points of good things that we've said throughout this, but
yeah, I mean, I would say like the things that are important, you know, obviously like we've said, yes, we think that, having disagreements and discussions in front of your kids is healthy and it can be a good tool, a good teaching tool.
depending on your level of heat,
yeah.
and to what the decision,
I would
the argument
say
is, the fight.
If you are doing that, it's very important that you make sure to fight fair, you know, and not name call and not yell in front of your kids.
Yeah,
and those are things that are true regardless.
Well, people that know us know that what language isn't a very open thing we use here.
Yeah,
so,
we don't, you know, not name calling, not yelling, not using, you know, words we wouldn't want our kids to use. And
which I mean, I think that helps break it down to just the fight at hand.
yeah, like just discussing what it is we're talking about
right,
now.
because you get rid of all that filler content, and now you're not egging each other on and creating more of a heated situation.
Yeah.
You can now actually hear the other person's opinion or side. So
And typically, like, it's something that is without a lot of anger. It's more like there can be annoyance. You know, our kids have seen us disagree with annoyance. But if that annoyance kind of starts to turn into anger, it's probably not a conversation that needs to be had in front of the kids. And I think, you know, being cognizant of the fact that your kids know somebody, you know, that's had a divorce, you know, and so just being mindful of like the types of discussions that you're having, you know, and making sure that if you're disagreeing, in front of your kids or annoyed with each other in front of your kids, they also get to see that reconciliation or that agreement or that decision so that they're not only observing the disagreement and never getting to see the resolution. You know, so just kind of being mindful of like, is this a conversation that we can have in its entirety right now, you know? And definitely being open with your kids about, you know, if they're, you know, because there have been times where Kenzie, you'll come and she'll be like, are you mad at daddy? I'm like, no, I love daddy, you know? And daddy and I were just talking about, you know, how we're going to get to church on time next time, you know, because it's important to be on time, you know, or whatever the case may be. And making sure that you are mindful of that. Because I think, you know, our kids have very different personalities. And so some of our kids are going to be more anxious. And so you don't want your anxious child constantly thinking that, you know, his parents hate each other and they make, you know, separate or whatever. And so it is important to be mindful of the conclusions that our kids are drawing as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's good to know, you know, that they think positively of you know, our relationship or whatever. So yeah, I think
and that they get to see like we love each other too. Like we're affectionate with each other. We snuggle with each other. We hold hands in the car while we're discussing being late, you know.
Right.
Or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, I think we do a good job of that. And as far as like, you know, just being silly around each other too, is whatever. And, you know, like I said, I think we mentioned before, like I like to wrestle with the kids after dinner or something. And sometimes Katie will get in on like the wrestling or like sneak up behind some of them. We'll all sort of wrestle as like a family unit. And they always crack up when mom tries to get on the wrestling stuff. They're like, oh no, mom's attacking too. So it always makes it interesting and exciting. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it shows that, I don't know, that connection of just being family. So,
But we would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Do you think that you should ever disagree in front of your kids or have those conversations? Why or why not? What are the good and bad potential outcomes that you can think of?
All right. So like, subscribe, follow, do all those things, share this video, and we will see you on the next venture. Bye.
Bye.